Hey folks, Bitter Steel here, back with another video for Hearts of Iron 4 Battle for the Bosporus. And today we are playing on version 1.10.2. That's right, the patch is out of beta and we are live. And what will we be doing today, you ask? Well, today we return once more to glorious Bulgaria. And what will Bulgaria do? Well, as Bulgaria, we are going for two achievements in this run. The Balkan Problem Solved, as Communist Bulgaria, form the United Balkan Federation and own all Balkan cores. That's a tall order, but something we can definitely do. And we will combine that with Prussia of the Balkans, as Bulgaria capitulate Turkey while also controlling the rest of the Balkans, including Greece. So, that sounds like a tall order, but I think we can pull this one off. We'll play as Bulgaria, with Iron Man mode on, obviously, and historical AI, so, well, we at least have some idea of what the rest is doing. And start. But first, if you like these videos, leave a like and hit me up in the comments telling me what you want to see me try next. Maybe a cool challenge, maybe some achievements you're having trouble with. I'm always open to some more suggestions. Also, consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload more content. Other than that, we have a very cool and active Discord community. I'll leave links to that down in the description below. But enough rambling, on to the video. Now, Bulgaria. We've all seen it. The horrible national spirits. The army you can't get rid of. There's not much to be done here. So as for the army, don't bother. Just plop them somewhere in the capital or any province really. And exercise them if you want to. Don't exercise them. It doesn't matter. As for research, we will be focusing almost exclusively on industry and engineering at the start. As for construction, we will simply start by building a few civilian factories. We can throw in one or two military factories here and there, but mostly we will just be cranking out civilian factories until we hit to 1939, maybe 1940. Because, well, our plan is to simply seize our neighbor's economy. Why do we have to build our own if we can just take it from someone else? And as for production, we don't need the motorized, they can get going. I like to make the infantry equipment and support equipment, so just put one more on infantry equipment. We will need a few guns for what we're planning to do. National focuses. The purpose of this path will be to quickly switch over to Red Bulgaria, which means starting out with getting rid of the Tsar. And with that basic setup done, let's get going. Now, before I forget, also a good idea to start on your espionage agency early. And with that done, let's head into things. Now, the first part of this guide will be focused on turning into Red Bulgaria as quickly as possible. Part 2 will focus on just how to handle that Balkan Federation, but there's a lot of RNG involved. Now, first things first, let's turn Bulgaria red. Excellent, the espionage agency is done. Now, in terms of upgrades, what you're looking to get is these unfortunately named pills, for obvious reasons, and they want to proceed with psychological warfare and the cryptology stuff until you have 5 upgrades that will allow you to have 2 spies. That's double. But we'll need to beef up our industry first. And for our spies, optimally, we would be looking for a few traits. Number 1, we want seducers. Seducers are best for this job because they are less likely to get captured or killed. So seducers, excellent choice. Unfortunately, we don't have any available. Our number 2 choices would be natural orators because they're so much more efficient at boosting ideology, which is the whole point of our espionage agency. Unfortunately, we have neither, so we will have to settle for this infiltrator and commando, and his job will be to start work on our network. Now, we will start out building a network in Romania. Romania will be our primary target. Why? Because Romania will go through 2 focuses that upend politics of the country. First of all, pro-allied government will give them a giant boost in democratic support at the expense of all other ideologies, meaning it does undo quite a bit of our work. And second, they will do the same as a pro-Axis government, giving a giant boost in fascism and undoing our work once again. So they will have to be our primary target. We will now build that network up to 100% and then put it on Wyatt, this mission here. That way we can maintain the network without risking our spy being captured. And with the Tsar opposed, we can continue moving. We will be looking to appoint some red ministers. However, There are things to do first for the internals of the nation. We have to handle the Zveno and we have to handle the Macedonians. As for the Zveno, we will be looking towards cooperation. The Zveno holds all the good generals as well as the good additions to the military high command. I heartily recommend integration, so we start with cooperate with the Zveno. We've now also unlocked some faction management for Bulgaria, and this is basically an entire set of decisions aimed at either integrating or destroying the 4 different factions in Bulgaria. We have the Zveno, the Socialists, the Agrarians, and the National Social Movement. We will be integrating 3 of them and destroying the last. Now, the exact order in which to do these is very important. In fact, they're so important that I'm not going to be highlighting them in the video. Instead, I will leave a link down in the description below that has all the information you need down to the date at which time you need to pick what decision. So look there. I will not be doing this on screen, pretty much because it's confusing to watch and not all that interesting. It will be 30 minutes of me looking at this screen clicking buttons. So I'll spare you that trouble and just direct you down below. Just check out the link. There's an excellent file there made by one of our community members, Steven. Thank you, Steven. Now, as for research, I will not be constantly going over what I'm doing, so I'll quickly highlight it. It's not super important. Focus on keeping up to date with the engineering, as usual. Same with industry. Once engineering and industry are up to date, look towards the infantry equipment, the artillery, and military doctrine. For military doctrine, I recommend superior firepower. It's easiest to manage. If you're a little more experienced, you could go with mass assault because of these supply reduction here, but that's your choice. I hardly recommend superior firepower if you're not all that experienced. Once all that is caught up, have a look at fighters and close air support, because CAS in this game right now, it's incredibly powerful. But we're not quite there yet. Let's just do some more research. Now that we have cooperated with the Zveno, we will also be condemning the Macedonians, simply because it will improve relations with our neighbors, which is important for what we're trying to do, but it will also improve our relations with the UK, and we need the UK to like us, or at least look at us in a favorable light, so they'll let us have an army again. So, condemn the Macedonian organizations. You'll also notice that we'll be spending most of our PP on these decisions. There are a few other times where we'll be spending PP not related to the faction management, and I will point out when to do that, don't worry. Brings us to the industry once again. It doesn't really matter if you go concentrated or dispersed. I prefer to go concentrated with a small country like Bulgaria, mostly because I want my factory output. I'm mostly doing construction anyway until 1939, so that will help getting more of that done. And at the end of it, factory output is yummy. You could just as well go with dispersed. This will give you more efficiency. The choice is yours.
A few moments later.
Now that we've condemned the Macedonians, we can move on and appoint ourselves some ministers. And with our new ministers, we move on. We will now unify the bourgeois movement. For a country this green, we're starting to turn a little red. At this point, we do have a nice stockpile of political power, so it's not a bad idea to do some anti-IMRO propaganda just to get rid of that modifier bit by bit. Now we've unified the bourgeois movement. We will now form a united front against the dreaded brown shirts. Now we have unified against the brown shirts. We cannot proceed down to the Fatherland front. We need to do some work before that. So let's head towards the industry tab and acquire some modern tools. At this point, we will also be integrating the broad socialists. Once this is done, we will finally be able to move down to the Fatherland front. And once again, the exact order in which you take these decisions is down in the file in the description below. And we have our modern tools, but still we cannot proceed just yet. So instead, let's work on the road system. That will also help us get more civilian factories that we need to improve our espionage agency. There we go. The socialists have been integrated, giving us a nice chunk of both stability and PP. And using some of that PP, we will now appoint one of their ministers, Todor Pavlov, for extra PP gain, some research speed, and daily communism support. That's a pretty good deal in my book. With the road system improved and the socialists integrated, we now move on to the Fatherland front. And with those extra civilian factories, we should be able to do psychological warfare upgrades now. We just need to cancel our trade for a little bit and we can carry on.
Later.
And with both upgrades requiring 8 factories done, can now move on to the cheaper ones and resume trading. Need some steel. Might as well start deciphering our future enemies like Germans, the Italians, and the USSR. Good, the Fatherland front has formed. Onwards and upwards. Or, well, down. With the Tsar. We will now overthrow the Tsar. And you'll notice I'm sitting on quite a bit of PP by now. We will not be spending any of it on other things than faction management unless we're done with faction management and we have everything integrated. I'll tell you what to do with your PP, don't worry, giggity. And with our mandatory 5 upgrades completed, we don't need any more. If you want to, feel free. I'm not going to invest any more in this. This will give us our 2 basic spies. And with the Tsar overthrown, it is time to finally establish the People's Republic of Bulgaria. And while we're establishing that, let's also improve our relations with Yugoslavia. We need to have good relations with them if we are to take the focus that follows. And we also have a nice chunk of PP to spend once again, and we will be taking Nikola Petkov, leader of the Agrarian Union, for some more PP gain. Bit of factories in a state, always nice, resources pretty good, and then a pretty bad daily democracy support, but I'll take it. Whenever these events pop up, just pick the bottom option. Yes, it's bad for your stability, but we just want to wipe this faction out. We do not want to boost their popularity. And we now also have our second spy, unfortunately not a seducer either, but we'll have to take what we can get. We will put her on standby for now. We have a full strength network in Romania ready to go. And there we go. We are now the People's Republic of Bulgaria. Now, be aware, the next part of this guide will be very subject to RNG. It all depends on whether or not Romania, Greece, and or Turkey flip communist. We will be enforcing that through decisions that we'll see later on, as well as using spies to boost communism support in those countries. However, if the country does not flip, there's very little you as the player can do about it. At best, you can push their support up to 60%. Anything over 60% doesn't impact the actual AI decision making. Once they hit 60, they either flip or they don't. And it could take all the way into 1945 for, let's say, Turkey to decide to flip, even if they are 100% communist. So with that warning, we will now proceed to part 2. RNG Boogaloo. Time for the Treaty of Perpetual Friendship. This is why we improved our relations with the Yugoslavs. We need to be at least at 25. And now for our spies and the RNG. We will be using our spies to build spy networks in our neighboring countries of Romania, Greece, and Turkey. And then we will be using those spy networks to boost ideology. We will slowly be turning these countries communist. And once a country reaches a 50% threshold of certain ideologies, there is a small chance that they will flip via referendum or through event. Once a country reaches 60% and is AI controlled, they don't even have to pay political power to switch over that ideology. However, it's still an RNG based decision. There's no guarantee this will work. So what we will be doing is using a series of decisions that we'll unlock later and our spies to push communism support in our neighbors over 60%. And all we can do past that point is wait. And if you're wondering why we want those countries to be communist, well, go down our tree a little further here. We have the option to bury the grudges of the past. This will invite any independent communist nation in the Balkans to our faction, which is great because all the way down our focus tree, the unification of the Balkans, we annex any Balkan nation that's allied to us through our faction. Pretty great. The important ones will be Greece and Romania. With those in the bag, you will have the strength required to take Turkey by force as well as the rest of the Balkans. You will be a considerable major from that point onwards. Now, if you also get Turkey, it just makes the rest of the game much easier. Also going to appoint ourselves an elusive gentleman, getting more spies. We'll need a lot of them. Now, personally, I like to put 2 spies in Romania to boost communism with 1 maintaining the network, and the 4th spy that we'll pick up later just builds the network in the next country down the line. Why? Well, even with the diminishing returns, this is quite powerful, and I really want Romania to flip early. They're the most annoying one to get because of the ideology flipping. And looking to the future, I'm going to be picking up transports. We might need to naval invade Italy. Excellent, the Treaty of Perpetual Friendship has completed. Let's see if they accept. Of course they accept. We're great people. Now with that focus done, we can now do the Balkan Federation project. This will take 120 days, and once that's complete, we will be able to take the Balkan Federation of Socialist Republics. We will start our own little faction. Meanwhile though, we need to bridge that gap with 2 more focuses. The People's Militia Directorate and the Youth Wings are great picks. This gives us more spies and a bit of stability, and this gives us more manpower. Both things we need. Meanwhile, we can spend some political power to improve our economy. Up back-to-war economy. And with the National Socialist Movement destroyed, that's all of our factions dealt with. They've given us a nice amount of political power over the years, and we've completely secured our country. Nice. Now we can focus all our attention on our neighbors. You'll notice that we're sitting on quite a bit of political power. That's okay, we'll need this in the future. Besides, we can't really do much with the recruitment laws anyway. We're up to the best economy law we can. Could switch up to free trade, but it's not that big of a deal. And the rest of this military cabinet we can fill out later. And the Balkan Federation project is complete. Once we train the youth wings, we can move on to our focus, the Balkan Federation of Socialist Republics. There we go, with those youth wings done and that decision finished. Time to start our own little faction. Now, as more manpower starts trickling in, because we trained the youth wings, and as long as supplies allow, keep doing these decisions to destabilize your neighbors. Yugoslavia is optional, it doesn't really matter, they'll join your faction anyway. I would completely ignore Albania. They'll be eaten by Italy anyway, but focus on Romania, Turkey, and Greece.
A few inches later.
Et voila! Yugoslavia joins the Balkan Federation of Socialist Republics. Now, once we move on to the next focus, bury the grudges of the past, we will invite all communist independent nations in the Balkans to this faction. However, there's none here. So, let's build communism support. Meanwhile, we continue boosting the industry. We sure need a little bit of industry. And while we're here, we might as well refuse our army restrictions. Done listening to what the UK says. And we can immediately ramp up to limited conscription. We'll need more manpower. It looks like Mr. Horthy is busy renouncing the Treaty of Trianon. Once he finishes this, they'll flip to fascist, but they'll not be in the Axis yet. That'll be an excellent time to justify a war goal on them. We can eat Hungary as well. And here we go. The decisions that will allow us to mess about with the Balkans. I would ignore Albania. Albania is trivial and irrelevant. They'll be eaten by Italy anyway. The big ones here, or the important ones, will be Romania and Greece, with Turkey being a nice bonus. So keep picking these destabilize and Balkan Federation propaganda decisions for the countries required until they reach at least 60% communism support. After that, it's irrelevant. Any extra support doesn't change AI decision making at all. It's up to RNG. National industry reinvigorated. Time for another research slot. Quite powerful indeed. Let's look at our neighbors. The Romanians are at 48%, so they're well on their way. The Greeks are 28%, could use some work, and the Turks 22%, so we're not quite there yet. The Bulgarians have renounced their treaty. Let's justify on them. And we've expanded Sofia University, another research slot, pretty great. Now for focuses, ideally we want to take bury the grudges as soon as possible. However, we're not quite there yet. The Romanians, Greeks and Turks have not flipped yet. So meanwhile, we could perform more industry focuses or build up the military a little bit. I think it's not a bad idea to just focus on the industry first. We are rather weak industrially looking at our production. We do have a nice amount of civilian factories, and once this last one finishes, we will follow up with a very large amount of military factories. We'll be heavily militarizing Bulgaria from now on. More industry, and the Italians are influencing us. A good chance to pick up a free non-aggression pact. After they do that focus, they'll always accept this. So, yeah, sure. Pretty much just want that non-aggression pact in case Greece and Romania flip early. Hopefully Turkey as well. That way we can form the faction early and we won't be at risk of Italy invading the Greeks, which they always do, unless we have already annexed Greece. Now, as for focuses, I think it's time to work on a military a little. We can either pick the National Military Academy. It's a pretty short one, for some free army XP and a bonus, or we reorganize the military industry. Not that great, but it leads to some pretty good stuff later on. I think we'll go for the aircraft repair facilities now. That will give us some free factories and cheaper airplanes. We're not making any yet, but we will soon. Okay, so the Romanians are well over 60%. Unfortunately, they're also appointing a pro-allied government. So either they flip before this focus finishes, or we'll have to wait another significant amount of time. Again, this is purely up to RNG. There's nothing the player can do past 60%. I'm sorry, I wish there was. This is the path Paradox chose, I will have to walk it.
12 seconds later.
Oh, we are fortunate indeed. The Romanian People's Republic, how much do they have left? They're within days of finishing this focus, they flipped. So that is really good. That means we can shift those spies away and into Turkey now. Now, ideally, we will also get Greece and Turkey as soon as possible. We have to get Greece. Greece is the minimum. With Romania and Greece, we can have a nice, strong Balkan faction. It's just that if we get Turkey in as well, they lose the guarantees that they'll pick up through their focus tree. And without those guarantees, we'll have a much easier time dealing with them. If we don't get them in, they'll be guaranteed by both the Axis and the Allies, which the Axis isn't a big deal. We'll beat them down anyway. But the Allied guarantee will mean there will be perpetual conflict once we invade Turkey and troops will flood in from Africa. It will just be a lot more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult. And we're done justifying on Hungary. Might as well eat them while we're here and get the Yugoslavs in, otherwise we don't have any access. Slow the game down, and now we just push in and quickly capitulate them. They shouldn't have too much. It looks like the Romanians are willing to join our faction manually. Sure. Another focus done. Let's look at Greece meanwhile. They're not quite there yet. Not too far off, but not quite. Same for Turkey. Still quite a ways off. And you can see they're being guaranteed by the UK now. That will stick around for the rest of the game, I believe. So it's a little early to bury the grudges. Let's keep working on the industry and the military. Let's reorganize the military industry so we can work on military factories. And Italy eats Albania, as they always do. This is why we don't invest there anyway. Even if they were communist, they'll just get annexed instantly. We've almost cut Hungary in two. Yeah, the Hungarians are really weak this early in the game. And it's not like they ever get incredibly powerful either. And that's Hungary dealt with. Seeing as we have all these core, might as well just puppet them. It beats having to deal with resistance. And with that, we've already dealt a significant blow to the Axis. They're not getting any of their Balkan allies in. And now we continue to focus on flipping the Greeks as quickly as we can. Alright, we reorganized the military industry, and let's look at our neighbors again. Greece, almost there. Not quite, but almost. And same for Turkey. So I think one more 70-day focus should do it, after which we can head for grudges of the past, assuming those countries flip. Again, there's no guarantee that will actually happen. Let's pick up some factories. Meanwhile, let's change our infantry template a little, add in 2 artillery, take out 2 infantry battalions, and this is a decent 7-2. It's not great, but it's decent. We'll need a lot of artillery though. Oh, looks like Germany's kicking things off in Europe. Let's look at our neighbors one more time. It's still gonna be too early, I'm afraid. Could start gambling at this point by continuously selecting this focus and then cancelling it if the countries that you want to flip don't flip, but it's quite a waste of time and political power, not to mention you're missing out on a lot of bonuses. So I'll just do a few more short focuses and hope to get what we need. Utmost optimization, more industry. I'm gonna try and get a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, see if it makes any difference in regards to Bessarabia now that Romania is in our faction. I doubt it, but it doesn't hurt to try. Okay, we do have a quite large amount of PP. Might as well spend that on improving the military. Get an infantry expert in. Manpower is also a bit on the low side, so ramping up recruitment laws next shouldn't be a bad idea either. Alright, utmost optimization. Let's look at our neighbors one more time. The Greeks, oh, they're there. 70%. They should be flipping any moment now, if they'll flip at all. And Turks are well on their way to 60% as well. As soon as we click destabilize, they should be getting there entirely. So I think we'll start rolling the dice on the grudges of the past. I know it's not a great strategy if you have to rely on RNG. I wish there was another way. Now I realize that this RNG isn't for everyone. If Communist Bulgaria isn't your cup of tea, you can always check out my video on Master Puppeteer. It will set you up for this achievement quite well without having to worry about too much RNG. But since making the same video twice is a bit boring, I've decided to go for the communist route. Okay, so good news. We have a little bit of time left on our focus and the Greeks have flipped as well. This will give us a fairly decent Balkan Federation. Ideally, we would get Turkey in as well, but Turkey's not required. So at least the run isn't dead. We can continue with this. Now we don't need to spend that much political power on influencing our neighbors. Let's keep ramping up the military with extensive conscription. There we go. We buried the grudges of the past. We'll now be inviting these countries to our faction. Yes, the Greeks are in, the Romanians are in, and the Yugoslavs were in already. That's pretty great. That's a good, strong Balkan Federation. Unfortunately, the Turks were at 70% support and they're still not flipping. Doesn't look like they'll be flipping anytime soon either. Oh well, we'll have to fight the Allies over that later. Time for the Balkan Trade Union Secretariat and work our way down to the unification of the Balkans. Well, where do we go from here? First of all, we will be going for the unification of the Balkans, trying to unify all those countries under our banner. Next up, we will be picking a fight with the Axis over these Balkan holdings that Italy has in the area and take them from them. After which, assuming the USSR hasn't taken Bessarabia, we will ignore the area entirely and turn all our attention on Turkey. If the USSR has taken Bessarabia, because Romania likes to give away free land, we'll first have to deal with the USSR, and then we can turn to Turkey. United, we shall prevail. Done. Onwards to the last one, unification of the Balkans. Alright, Soviet Union is kicking things off in Finland. It looks like they haven't asked for Bessarabia yet, which is great. So I think one way to prevent Bessarabia is if the Romanians flip early and are willing to join your faction. That non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union means they can't justify. Let's hope that is actually true and I'm not an idiot. There we go. Unification of the Balkans complete. Let's see if this works out. The dream comes true indeed. Romanians, the Greeks, and the Yugoslavs have all agreed to join. So we've gone from a rather weak country into an absolute beast. From this point forward, we don't even have to worry about the Soviet Union. They probably won't come for Bessarabia, not as long as we maintain that non-aggression pact. And once the Germans come knocking, well, they have other things to worry about. Now, we can turn our attention towards the Italians and clean up this mess they've made of the Balkans. Now, as for focuses, I'll leave this up to you. Pick whatever you like. I recommend picking things that will strengthen the military. And if your army is big enough, you can actually ask the Italians to just give you your stuff back. But I do think you need a very sizable military before they'll agree to this. Plus, there's always some RNG involved. Personally, I'm going to improve my airplanes.
Later.
Alright, now I've changed all these new divisions into our basic infantry template. I know it's not great, but it's something to work with. Once we get more experience, we'll probably be making these into 14-4s for our offensive templates, our shock troops. We shouldn't have to worry too much about the Russian front. We will now be completely focusing our attention on taking down Italy as quickly as possible. So man these fronts along the Balkan frontiers, push into Albania as soon as possible, as well as cleaning up Zara. And then we'll launch a naval invasion across the Adriatic to try and knock out the Italians quickly. Now I've gone ahead and improved relations with Turkey. That way you could get military access from them, just so I could get these destroyers out of the Black Sea. Trying to group up my navy into a single fighting force so we can use it to quickly hop across the Adriatic once war kicks off with Italy. Okay, it's October of 1940. We are well unified and quite strong. Might not be a bad idea to see if Italy is willing to give up some of their land. Now they'll probably say no at this point. Their army is large, but probably not large enough to intimidate them. However, it will also give us a war goal if they say no. An excellent opportunity to start kicking around some Italians. To the north, our front is narrow enough that we can probably hold this area without too much difficulty, and once we manage to get across the Adriatic, well, there's really nothing Italy can do to stop us. Now I'll be putting my fleet into port without an order, that way the Italians won't be tempted to put ships in the Adriatic and they'll be too busy fighting the British. Meanwhile, we should be able to sweep up these Balkan holdings without too much difficulty and then dig in the north. And then we just wait for a good opportunity to hop across the Adriatic and knock Italy out, and from there we push the Axis to their breaking point. And of course the Italians refuse to give up Balkan territories because they are fools. We can either do nothing and deal with them later, or get ourselves an annexation war goal against Italy. Seems like a pretty fair deal. And it appears these don't even expire, so it's free real estate. First though, I'm going to ask Turkey nicely for our Balkan territories back. I'm curious. Unfortunately. No, they're not giving up either. Guess we're not strong enough for them. In that case, we are well prepared to start tackling the Axis. The big question here will be just how many troops they've stacked on the Italian peninsula. Fortunately, we have our spies in place, we have a sizable military, We should not have too many difficulties dealing with the Italians. The northern front is quite narrow. We can dig in very well here, and we don't have to call Hungary into this. This way the Axis will waste a lot of troops just sitting on this border. Alright, I think we've indulged Italian presence on our rightful Balkan clay long enough. It's time to declare. Yes, I know this will draw Japan in. Japan is irrelevant. I mean, it doesn't matter one bit for the strategy. Besides, the USA will crush them anyway. Now we'll quickly clean up this Albanian pocket and possibly divert these divisions to act as port guards, since we do have a lot of stuff that we should probably be guarding. What I'm going to try next is see if I can't get a justification going on Turkey. Once that's rolling, I'll try and join the Allies, and let's see if we can get Turkey into this mix. It would cause a lot less headache not having to fight the Allies. Alright, let's set this fleet naval invasion escorts. Ooh, and hop across with our little army. I hope those ports aren't too guarded, because Italy seems to have a lot on the homeland. Alright, looks like troops are landing. Let's quickly push out and get rid of this front line and ship the rest of these troops over as well. If we can close this, we'll already have cut Italy in half. Pretty much the entire goal of our arrival here. Okay, the Balkans are shored up. Let's check the north. Yeah, the north is holding quite well. I'll redirect this Albanian force to a port. They can help in Italy, and this smaller army for now, they will just be relegated to port guard duty. I don't want to get naval invaded while I'm not paying attention. Now time to justify on the Turks for Edirne, Istanbul, doesn't matter. While I'm doing that, I'm going to disband my faction. There's nobody in it but me and my little puppet here, and I'll wait for an invitation to the Allies, unless I can get myself in this way. Yes, just ask to join their faction. And we're now in the Allies. Okay, it would seem we've cut Italy in half. Now, to make sure we don't lose it, I'll ship the second army across and dig in until I know that I can hold this position. I think we sort of missed our chance in northern Italy. Germans really flooded in here. We'll have to figure out another way to solve this problem. 21% participation so far. Not bad, not bad. Minimal losses, and we are really hurting the Italians. Meanwhile, there's just non-stop cycle charging us in the northern Balkans. We can probably start a counteroffensive soon. These units are incredibly weak by now. Alright, the annoying bit is going to be getting across Sicily, so I'll just have to preempt that, set up a little bit of a naval invasion. Excellent! Justification on Edirne is ready. Let's see if we can actually declare. Oh, we can declare. This is going to pull Turkey into the Axis, and we won't have to bother with the Allies, which is pretty great, all things considering. Wouldn't really want to pick a fight with the Allies and the Axis, and possibly the Soviet Union, in case you've lost Bessarabia to them. Now, Turkey is a formidable opponent, so be sure to have all those areas garrisoned and ready for a fight. They will come at you hard. Fortunately, we do have the manpower and the equipment to make this a good little fight, and with allied help, shouldn't be too much of a problem. Alright, these naval landings should be sufficient to deal Turkey the death blow. Once they lose Sicily, that's going to be it for them. Well, almost. I'll probably have to take Florence and Bologna. All in all, we're looking quite positive. Yeah, the north is well secured. Alright, that's southern Italy cleaned up. Now we can redirect those troops to clean up the rest of the Italian homeland. Italy knocked out, it's just going to be the Germans that pose any sort of a risk, and we can take care of the Turks at our leisure. Leisure? 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 Now for the achievement, we do have to capitulate the Turks. And I heartily recommend doing that before the Germans go tits up, because the achievement will only fire if the Turks capitulate, not if the entire faction stops fighting. For some reason that doesn't count, so we have to take out Turks first. So to make sure that the Turks capitulate before the Germans do, maybe it's time we launch a few naval operations. Try and knock them out. Alright, we're ready to launch our naval invasion to the southeastern part of Turkey. Hopefully we'll be able to break through there. No guarantees, since the Turkish army seems to be quite large, but hopefully most of them are stuck on the western front. I've also converted some units into the more capable 14-4 format. These guys should be packing a much bigger punch, but we'll see what happens first. We need to take a port. Looks promising. If we can push that division out of the port, we have a workable breach in the south, and most of the Turkish army is busy fighting us around Edirne. Excellent, we have made landfall, we've taken the area. Now it's time to bring in the rest of the army and expand as quickly as possible. Hopefully this will be enough to break them. We'll see when they start redeploying large amounts of units from there. Oh yeah, they're panicking. They're pulling troops out. I'm gonna keep them busy as long as I can, just to give us enough time to make this gap as big as possible. Well, there goes Turkey. Excellent. Well, this is rather unfortunate. The UK has kicked us from their faction, but that's okay. With this, we have completed Prussia of the Balkans. That was quite a ride, and we didn't even have to fight any world superpowers. Well, if you don't count Germany. If we keep this going, however, we are well on track for getting the Balkan problem solved as well. Or why create a faction when we can just join a different one? And now that we are in the Chinese United Front, well, we will simply take over the faction once we are in a position to do so. That will fulfill all the requirements for Balkan problem solved. I am quite curious though why the United Kingdom was able to kick us from their faction while we are all still involved in the same wars. So I'll just have to accept that, I suppose.
6 hours later.
Ah, there we go. We can now take over the Chinese United Front. And since we're now a faction leader, that's the Balkan problem solved. We control all our core states in the Balkans, and we're a faction leader. So at this point, it's late 1941, and you can still do whatever you want, really. Finish off the Axis, get yourself some nice juicy land or puppets there, then turn on the Soviets, completely demolish them as well. The world is your oyster. And with those two achievements done, we are finished. If you like this video, leave a like, consider subscribing to see more content like this, and check out my channel, see if there's anything there you like. Hit me up in the comments, I'm always looking for more suggestions. If you didn't like the video, hit that dislike button and tell me why in the comments. I'm always looking to improve. And once again, I want to put out a big shout out there to my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing. Thank you for making this possible. Well, this has been me, Bitter Steel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!